and welcome to another infamous, time-consuming, time-intensive... No, wait, that's not right either. You know what, forget it. Welcome to another tutorial with me, Captain Mac, and today we are going to talk about approach charts. And what you're seeing right now is two approach charts to the exact same runway for the exact same procedure, and they both look very different, don't they? Yes, they do indeed. So what you're looking at on the left here, this is a pretty standard approach chart, similar to the Jeppesen format and also the FAA format. And in fact, this one is a PDF version of one that I pulled off of AirNav.com. I'll try to remember to put a link down in the comments there. And the one on the right is called a Lido chart. And I believe it's Lido, L-I-D-O, yeah, Lido chart. So Lido chart is basically just a different company, kind of like Jeppesen, but they obviously make charts that look a little different. Some people absolutely love the Lido charts. Some people despise them with every ounce of their being. I am not part of the latter group. I actually like them, which works out well because I get them from Navigraph, as you can see down here, barring this little pop-up thing that loves to get in the way. It says this chart's part of Navigraph charts and is intended for flight simulation use only. So what I wanted to do here is I've tried to do this video like 80 different times and it's just been driving me insane. So I'm going to kind of just change it up here a little bit. We're going to get what we get out of this, and I'm going to put it up there so that this information is available. Now, knowing me, this thing's going to be a little long, so let me just apologize in advance and say, you know what, if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to. All right? So real briefly, I'm going to cover the basic format that we have for like our Jeppesen and FAA charts on the left, tell you basically how it's laid out, and then I'm going to get rid of this thing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Lido chart, and then I'm going to get rid of this thing. But in the future, Lido charts are the ones that you'll see me using most of the time. Once in a while, I might go to this style of chart, but most of the time, you're going to see me using a Lido chart. And that's why I wanted to show you these today. And basically, the idea here is just to give you a basic understanding, there's a lot of basics in there, right, of the layout of these charts. Now, it's usually pretty simple when you look at an ILS approach plate like this one, but it's going to be a little more complex when we start looking at SID stars, which we've already taken a glance at in previous videos. But basically, there's another basically. Maybe that's my pet word for the day. Let's go with that. Basically is my pet word for the day. So basically, I'm going to stick with basically doing things the basic way because that's the easiest way to basically take care of things. You like that? All right, maybe I got it out of my system now. What I want to do is show you the layout of this chart so that you can understand it. Know that if you're flying in the US and you go to airnav.com, you can get these charts free all day long. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. That being said, you can also buy a hard copy of these. There's basically again. Go to any local airport that has an FBO and go into their little pilot shop in there, and I guarantee they'll have approach plates for that area. And so let's do that real quick. Then we'll talk about this, get rid of this, and then we'll be done. Because again, this is just for you to understand the layout, what information is available, and where on these charts. So starting on the left, your basic layout of the chart. You've got 4 sections. We can call it the header section. I think it's called something else, but I don't have my notes in front of me, so we're going to go with header section. This is the plan section or plan view. This is the profile view, and this is the airport information view. I believe it's airport information. So starting up top here, we have the location, Phoenix, Arizona. That's good. That's where we want to be. It gives us the runway type of approach and the runway that the approach goes to. Now, something I didn't realize, have you ever seen a VOR A or B approach? I'm sure most of you have. And I used to wonder, what's that all about? Okay, so I know now, which is pretty cool. If the approach course, that's this dark black line, is within 30 degrees of the center line of the runway, that being the direction of the center line of the runway. So in this case, it's 258 degrees. We're on ILS, so it's directly in. But if it's within 30 degrees of that center line of the runway, then you'll have a runway number on your approach plate. If it is more than 30 degrees from the center line of the heading of the runway, then you get a letter. So a VOR A or a VOR B approach means that you are approaching from more than 30 degrees off the center line of the runway. So this is 258 degrees. So if our approach into this runway was 227, is that 30? Yeah, 227, that would be 31 degrees. And so it would not be a runway 26 approach, it would be A or B approach. Hope that makes sense to everybody. It took a little while to figure that out, and it took a little while to explain it. So let's move on. This little guy right here in the middle, this is the FAA chart number. I'm not going to go into detail on that right now because it's not applicable to us. Not at the moment anyway. We have the airport name down here, Phoenix Sky Harbor International. And then coming over here, we've got our frequency, our ILS frequency, or localizer / DME, and then ICWJ is the name of the ILS localizer here. And it gives us the frequency there as well as the TACAN at channel 54. I believe that's TACAN. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I don't mind. Let's move on. You've got your final approach course of 258 degrees. You've got your runway landing distance of 11,489 feet, keeping in mind that this distance is measured from the touchdown zone, which means if you come in just a skosh low, you would land before the touchdown zone, you'd have a few extra feet. Not that it really is going to matter that much if you're in a 747, right? This is the touchdown zone elevation of 1,135 feet and the airport elevation of 1,135 feet, keeping in mind that the airport elevation is the center of the airport, and in this case it just so happens that the touchdown zone elevation is the same. Often they differ by a few feet. The T and the A have some, the bold T and the bold A over here, they have something to do with minimums. And I don't fully understand that because, I'm not an instrument-rated pilot, and interestingly enough, most instrument-rated pilots don't understand that either because it's significantly confusing. But just to try and give you a little bit of information on it real quick, and I'll just briefly cover this and then we'll move on. The T, that's, let me move the mouse here, that's this guy right here. So that T signifies that the airport has non-standard IFR takeoff minimums. Now, if you really want to know what that means, look up Federal Aviation Regulations Parts 121, 135, and Part 91. Even though technically for Part 91 operations, there are no regulatory IFR takeoff minimums. Are you confused yet? Wait till we get to A here. So the A, right below it there, signifies that non-standard alternate minimums exist for the airport, being that the usual alternate minimums are 601 and 801. If NA is specified, it indicates that alternate minimums are not authorized due to it being an unmonitored facility or lack of a weather reporting service. This means you cannot use the approach to determine during pre-flight planning if you can choose the airport as an alternate, and on it goes. If you want to know more about that, you're going to have to look up the Federal Aviation Regulations because, honestly, reading it made my head hurt. Okay, enough about that. So there you go. That's what those are about. The next box over, however, this is some pretty important information here. This is an actual a textual or a text version of how to conduct our missed approach procedure, and it tells us right there we'll climb to 2,500 feet and then continue a climbing right turn to 5,000 feet on heading 030, and then right here it says and PXR VORTAC R. That's where people get confused. What this is saying is that I'm going to turn right. I'm going to turn right while climbing to 5,000 feet, and then I'm going to intercept the Phoenix VOR, which is PXR, that's this one right here, 336 radial out to event. So you can see this dotted line here. In our plan view, there's the 336 radial, there's event, and then I would hold there. An event, just so you know, this is telling you that event is 15.9 DME from PXR. That's DME being distance measuring equipment, so it's 15.9 miles from here to here. And there you go. All right, let's move on. Right below this, we've got all of our frequency information that's critical to our final phases of flight as we approach the airport. So we've got our ATIS, which is Automated Terminal Information System. That's going to give us our weather. Phoenix Approach Control is going to give us permission to come on in. Phoenix Tower is going to give us permission to land. In this case, we're landing on runway 26, so we would need to be on 118.7. Okay, if we were landing on either of the other two runways, it's a different frequency, and the same for ground control. Runway 26 is on the north side of the airport, so we would need to be on the north frequency when we go over to ground, and when we cross over to the south, then we'd change frequencies, and then of course clearance delivery. And that's our entire header section up there. And actually it's called the margin identification. I found my notes over here, but header section, margin identification, it's all the same to me. So let's move into our plan view here really quick. And basically now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce between both of these for a couple of minutes so that this doesn't take too long. As far as the information up here in our margin information, all of this information is found on this chart. It's just laid out differently. So your frequency, nice big box right up here. Include as far as Phoenix, Arizona, Phoenix, it's got the IATA and the ICAO code. United States, Phoenix, Phoenix Sky Harbor International. All that information's up there. The frequencies right here. The final approach fix, instead of having the approach course in a box up here, you just have the approach course in nice big bold letters right there, which I think is fine. Runway landing elevation, touchdown zone elevation, and airport elevation are all going to be found. And now absolutely my brain just drew a complete blank. Normally if I just need to look around and find these things, I can find them. Here is your touchdown zone, 1,135 feet, and it doesn't really, it's not giving us, this is in meters, 3,502 meters, which tells us 11,489 feet. Here's the airport elevation, 1,135 feet. So it's laid out a little bit differently. And then as far as the alternate minimums is concerned, I'm not sure if this leaves a note for that somewhere. I imagine it does, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. Missed approach procedures. On this one, instead of having that text view up here, it's got the same dotted line as it does right here on our plan view, which we're going to get to. Oh, I did skip something. I'm sorry. Frequencies. ATIS, tower, ground. It doesn't include clearance delivery, and it doesn't include approach control. So other than that, basically, like I said, we've got all the same information. It's just in different areas, and it takes some getting used to it. I'm still getting used to these types of charts because I'm used to these. So let's take a look at the two plan views, and we'll continue to move forward. So in your plan view, first of all, you've got your primary or your final approach course, which is 258 degrees. It shows a small graphical depiction of the runway and, if possible, any other runways nearby. We have the same thing over here. Notice that the orientation of the two charts is actually a little bit different, and here's what's interesting about that. So it's 258 degrees. This chart is not orientated straight north. Alright, this chart is, which is one of the things that a lot of folks like about it. So the way this chart orientates, up is north. Over here, up is not necessarily north. So that's one of the helpful things about it. We have the same thing, an approach course here. This view is zoomed out a little bit more, which I kind of like. If you look here, we've got the same waypoint, Zerlo, which is actually the start of the approach. It's the transition to the approach, and then it goes to Saroon, Zimos, Tadre, Jagal, Prune, Delcy, and in you go. And then we come over here and we've got Zerlo, Saroon, Zimos, Tadre, Jagal, Prune, Delcy. All the same exact waypoints. And we've got the same information essentially on the waypoints. So Zerlo, we need to be at 7,000 feet as we go from Zerlo to Saroon, and we've got that same information right here, and it even gives us the heading of 186 degrees and how far it is. Now it's 9.8 nautical miles. This one just says 10 miles because the 0.2 probably isn't going to make much of a difference, especially when you're flying an ILS approach. Now, don't misunderstand what I mean by that. Distance is even 0.2 of a mile is critical during an ILS, but what I mean is this is where you're going to intercept the ILS, so you're going to have radio navigation equipment that's going to help bring you on course. So I think that's why they just round it up. Or, I don't know, maybe that's just the way they do it with these charts. They just round it up 0.2 of a mile and don't worry about it so much. Let's see what else we got here. So initial approach fix is Saroon, and we look down here and we can see initial approach fix. It's written, it's a little easier to actually identify, and then it's Saroon. It says D22.1 ICWJ. ICWJ 22.1. What are we talking about? That's our distance from ICWJ. Where's ICWJ? ICWJ is the actual localizer, which This is one thing I like about this chart a little better. Your localizer, it's actually points right where it's at here. You don't really get that on this chart over here. This just tells you how far you are from the localizer. So, but we still have the information there, so we know how far we are away from it. We've got all this. We've got all the elevations that are required of us, just like we have on here: 6,000, 5,000, 4,3, 6,543, and 1,550, and so on. Now, what we have over here that we do not have over here is a fantastic graphical depiction of the terrain. We get no terrain information over here, at least not visually. We do have terrain information. We know that this point right here is 4,067 feet above the ground. Okay, we can also see that this entire thing is not even close to scale, whereas this one actually has some information down to scale. So everything inside this circle is drawn to scale, and then everything as it goes out is they attempt to put it as close to scale as they can. We all know that darker, when we're looking at like a topographical map, we all know that darker is going to mean higher, and then we get that representation over here as well. And we can see that the highest point that it shows in here is 4,806, which you might say is a little bit higher than that. Well, I don't know where this point is related to what's on this chart, because the way they're laid out is a little bit different. I do know that Avent and Avent here are not relatively the same as far as the distance it appears to be on the chart. You get where I'm coming from on that? So we've got some information drawn to scale here and some not, and then basically no information drawn to scale here. So we kind of have to, you know, if we're gonna go between one type of chart or the next, we need to be pretty familiar with how it's laid out, and that's why I'm still adjusting to this particular chart over here. Okay, blathered about that a little bit for long enough. There are still a few things that I'm trying to learn about these charts, but I do like that it gives me a DME arc, 25, 20, and then this is probably 10. And these are all distances from PXR, which is the VOR right here. I don't have that DME arc information over here. This does give me a minimum safe altitude information in relation to the Phoenix VOR, which you don't need so much over here, because you see this is 20 miles out. This goes to 25 miles out. Well, here's my 25-mile ring. So I know that anywhere in here, I know what information I'm looking at. Now, it doesn't help me for anything down here, whereas this should. But basically, the way this minimum safe altitude works is if you're anywhere between these two radials of PXR, which would be down over here. Actually, that's incorrect. See, this is why the orientation is so important. 0, 1, 0 should... 0, 1, 0 on this chart over here is where? Up over here. But it's pointing down over here. Well, that is the 0, 1, 0 radial, right? No, that's when you're headed 0, 1, 0 towards it. 0, 1, 0 radial should still be up here. Who's confused now? Go back and take a look at my VOR navigation tutorial, and you'll understand that a little better. Nice segue, right? Anyway, if you're between the radials listed here, the minimum safe altitude is what you see listed here. On this chart, however, you can basically take a look and you can say anywhere within here, I know what the terrain is. But again, it doesn't really help me for this terrain down here. So something to keep in mind. Have we blathered on long enough? We probably have. That's probably the gist of the plan section there. You all have seen these before, so you know what you're looking at. But if you have any specific questions about anything in here, please feel free to let me know, and I will get that information to you. But you'll start to learn more as we go along, because we're going to start using charts a lot more in depth. Good times. Very well then, let's move on to our profile view. As I was saying that, I bit my tongue. That was quite painful. No laughing. So profile view, this basically gives us a profile look, including a elevation profile. Profile view, elevation profile. It makes perfect sense. Basically, you could look at it like here's your overhead view, and here's your view from the side, or here's your lateral navigation view, and here's your vertical navigation view. And the same could be said over here. The difference being, of course, that first of all, when we go from this chart to this chart, we pretty much, well, we don't pretty much, we get rid of this little airport, what do they call it? The airport environment information. Why? Well, because they make full charts for this anyway, so that was never necessary, so I like that. We also have this little section in the middle here, which is separate from what we don't have that over here. So what are we looking at here? This is distances and elevations here, and my phone was ringing, but I had it on silent. Aren't you proud of me? Distances and elevations here, not fully understanding what they use this portion for here, but I believe it has to do with where you should be when you're 10.8 miles out. You should be at 4,000 and so on. So when you're 4 miles out, you should still be at 1,820 feet. That doesn't really make sense to me, though, because at 4 miles, that would put you at what? Not even 700 feet above the ground, right? At 4 miles out? That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? So I'm going to go ahead and say that's probably not what that's for. If somebody knows what this is for, please do me a favor. Give me a heads up. I'd like to learn about that. There's a couple other things. The 3 degrees here, this has to do with the view of the Pappy Lights here. These 4 lights are called Pappy Lights. You recognize them as the red and white lights next to the runway. And basically the way they work is very simple. The angle you're looking at the lights from determines what color light you see. So if you're looking at a very high angle at the lights, then you will see white light. If you're looking at a very low angle at the lights, you will see red lights. And then of course the angle varies all the way across all 4 of them so that you can see 2 white and 2 red, meaning you're on glide slope. And if so, you would be on a 3-degree glide slope. That's your threshold. From there to there is 3,502 meters. I'm believing that's what that's supposed to be. I haven't done the math to determine whether or not that equals the same as the 11,489 feet for the runway. Good times. But basically our information is all the same over here. I think that the way they lay out the distances between the waypoints here is a little more efficient. I get from Tadre to Jugal 3.6 nautical miles. I come over here, it doesn't show Tadre, so let's take the next one. 3.4 miles from Jugal to Prune. And I come over here and this only tells me how far out I am from my touchdown. It doesn't tell me the distance between the 2. Now it does give me that distance up here, but it is rounded up. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's either rounded up or down. It's not quite as precise. So, but it still gives me my elevations, 4,000 at Jugal, which is the D for the descent point. And I don't know what the P stands for, but clearly this is the point where we're supposed to intercept and capture the glide slope. And then I think GP maybe stands for glide profile, but it's 3-degree glide slope all the way in. We already knew that because we were talking about this. So whether you were flying at visual or ILS, it would be a 3-degree glide slope. That little thing popping up is so annoying down there. And then there's some other general information down here. We're not going to worry about this right now for 2 reasons. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't fully understand it yet. If you are like the master of this stuff and you know what's up, hey, feel free to let us know. But otherwise, don't beat me up too bad that I don't know everything because, hey, I don't know everything. Last thing I want to cover, though, is this also includes the information about your missed approach. So this textual information here is the same as this up here, essentially. Okay, and what you don't get here that you do get over here is this graphical representation of the missed approach. So you can see that maintaining 258 degrees, it doesn't say climb to 2,500 because it assumes you're doing a missed approach, you're already climbing. So at 2,500 feet, right turn heading 030, intercept radial 336 PXR to event. That means we're intercepting the 336 radial outbound from PXR and climb to 5,000 feet. So very basic information about that. Minimum descent, MDA is minimum descent altitude. Some people call it minimum decision altitude. It's the minimum point you can descend to before you must conduct a missed approach if you cannot see the runway. I don't know what TERPS means. That's a term I've heard before, but I've never really quite figured it out. So forgive me on that. We also have a little information down here on changes to the chart. So you can see it tells us, I wish that thing would stop popping up, it's so obnoxious. It tells us that the chart layout has been changed. Waypoint ZMOS, minimums, obstacles, not positive on what TCH and AMDT are. But anyway, those are some of the things that have been changed since the previous version. Now keep in mind, the chart on the right, as you can see up here, was effective from 29 May 2014. Okay, the chart on the left is 23 July 2015 to 20 August 2015. What does that tell you? Well, the chart on the left is a current chart. You can get current charts from AirNav. You do not get current charts from Navigraph. So I think we've covered the basic layout of this. I haven't seen the time yet, but I'm guessing this is probably like 30 minutes long. So sorry to yappity yap so long, but as you can see, there's a ton of information on these charts. There really is. So whether you use this format of chart here or this format of chart here, let me also just say really quick, while you can get these for on AirNav, fantastic. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. You just go to AirNav, download a PDF. However, AirNav only covers the United States. That's it, and it doesn't even cover parts of Alaska. It does cover a little bit in some other areas in Canada and stuff, but very, very little. So basically, if you're flying in the U.S., great, fantastic. But if you want to fly outside of the U.S., guess what? You're going to either have to go with these guys here, or you can use Avlasoft's EFB, which I also have. I just got these charts because I wanted to try and add some different immersion to my flight sim, and I like it. It's pretty good. So Navigraph charts, I get them off the cloud here, and this is airnav.com. So enough is enough. Yeah, I think that's it. Little pause in there. These are the charts that you're going to see me using from now on. Once in a while you might see me go to the other charts, but mostly you're going to see me using these guys here. So when you see these charts pop up, at least you're a little bit familiar with them. And again, if you have any questions about anything having to do with these charts, or if you know something I don't know, please feel free to put it down in the comments. And that pretty much wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed this not so short tutorial, because apparently I don't know how to do a short tutorial. If you did enjoy it, please give a thumbs up down below. And as always, please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate everybody that's hopped on board. We're up to 81 now. 81 subscribers. Let me tell you what, that's fantastic. I'm loving it. So, all right, that's it, guys. I'll talk to y'all later, and let's have some fun out there.